welcome to the Paper Podcast. This episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm also doing a web series called The Expandable with marketing consultant Lee Murray. And during our discussion, thought this would also go well for this audience over at the Paper Podcast. So, here you go. Please, hit the like button, tell me what you think, and let me know what other discussions you'd love to hear. Thank you.
I don't know. You think we're heading into a recession, or are we technically in it? Do you think it'll get worse?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have an answer for that right now. Because I see a lot of businesses doing really well, and I see some that are not doing marginally good. I think there's still a ton of opportunity out there. And a lot of the things that I see and read and listen to on the podcast that I follow, they point to a lot of the bigger businesses having to take austerity measures, tightening their belt. I think the layoffs kind of have happened. Now it's more of looking at their contracts and looking at all the internal cash flow because they have to rethink how they're reporting to shareholders. But if you look historically, when this happens, the Great Recession, what we had happen more recently with COVID, it bursts new opportunity. It bursts new innovation. It bursts new things. I mean, all the stuff that's happening with AI is
necessity is the mother of invention.
That's a new wave. So, economically, you have that landscape changing, but you also have tech and innovative technology changing with primarily AI. So you have these conversations that always happen together. So it's almost like it gives the market something new to hope for. And they spend their time working on and building these things, or working with companies who are building these things. I have a buddy of mine. I've known each other since college. He just posted on LinkedIn yesterday that he's the first hired graphic designer for a new AI startup that's been funded, VC funded. And so there you go. It's like the I don't know, millennial and maybe even Gen X still have a little of that, drive and passion about startup type of world.
Yeah,
I think
it's exciting.
And they want to be part of something new. They don't want to just die off yet into these bigger companies that they've been working with. So AI is here to kind of give them something new to think about. It makes them feel like they're on the cutting edge. So there's this hope.
And to me,
happens.
what I hope with the privilege of AI is it enhances the people that are doing good work, because then they can scale their creativity in there, and we get out all the monotonous that aren't adding true value out there in the world.
And on the AI topic, I heard this the other day, where it's basically saying, excuse me, I got emotional. Basically saying, like, it's not the same, but similarly, when Excel came and spreadsheets were a thing, it automated a lot of the tasks you would do manually. I mean, you think about that jump from whatever they were using before. You just think, I don't even know what that was before.
Just ledger and a green bar.
Yeah. So data now became much more fluid. And I think it's just going to be another revolution of how we input and export data. But it's almost like going from, okay, I have this thought and I need to have this outcome in my work. And now with maybe an input of your voice to ChatGPT or something similar, you can almost get the full output without having to push buttons, swipe, click, go to this, understand the program, right? Because if you think back, I thought it was really interesting. They were talking about, you think back to like SaaS companies and software, they gave you the ability to solve the problem quicker, but you still had to understand the software and how to use it, so you had to come up, get licensed, whatever. Now, you didn't have to know how to code then. You don't have to know how to code now. No. You don't have to know the software, really. All you really need to do is understand the prompt. You just really have to understand how to give it what it needs to give you what you need. And so it really cuts out a lot.
Well, and then I think on top of that, you've got to have the common sense to read the output and making sure that also makes sense and that sounds like you. If you're doing a narrative or voice, you still need to, doesn't mean it's perfect.
Right.
You need to go back there. Just like if you were to have an employee gather that data and get it to it, garbage in, garbage out, they can make the same mistake. You can't assume that AI is going to be perfect either.
That's right.
Well, so you still have to have that second pair and but to me, it would be easier spot check. Okay, did you verify this data over here for your...
The co-founder, CEO of HubSpot, said yesterday on LinkedIn that he looks at the LLM, large language model, as a large learning model. That's how we should think about it. And it makes sense that it's learning. It needs data to learn. It needs data to learn and give us what we need back. So how we utilize it, good, bad, and ugly, is all about what we're giving it. It's all about the data we give it and the question we ask of it.
And I know, and what stinks too is just because the majority think one thing's fact, it may actually not be. Just because you have 70% of the input say it's this way, really that 30% is the right one.
That's right.
And, there's going to be cases like that always.
That's
because,
so
it's the David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
David does win too, even though, and Goliath may win most of the time, but,
Looking forward, I think, and you and I have talked about this, taking the sort of chat model and putting it on top of data in your company, or, for bigger companies, it's going to make more sense because they probably already have a lot of chaotic data that they want to, organize across departments. That's I think where the real benefit in the short term is, maybe in the next 5 years, is having what you might call a knowledge worker that's maybe part of a vendor that's putting this together for your company. That's just the way I see it playing out. Like at the new SaaS, right? SaaS evolving into an AI deliverable, putting that on top of your data and basically teaching you how to organize your data so that you can input it.
Yeah.
And then having the GPT model,
and for the banking world, I see amazing because, we always liked, reconciliation, daily reconciliation. And then now you've got the movement into real time, which, yes, you can have real time on transactions, but ultimately you want to know, want an end of a day cutoff. So you knew what was it, what was the balances at this point in time, even though everything is fluid and it changes, you still need that one point in time. And
the amount of
I
work.
can see AI, just being so much useful analysis. Okay, what was this point in time? And not always having to save that file where it was in that point in time in this file and I recorded that it's constantly like, go back to this time, where we're here, see the progression of where we were from, quarter to quarter, day to day. Yeah. It just,
but if you think about it in the Excel analogy, I think that what you're talking about is one of the more simple functions of Excel. Like, you can go in and do a sum of a certain number of cells. It's a simple function that we use a lot probably in Excel. That what you're talking about, how to utilize AI.
We still use pivot tables.
Yeah. I think AI is going to be, 100x the pivot table concept because it's truncating all of these different steps. If you have the data there and it's accessible, then it's going to truncate all those steps. It won't need a human to go into know the program, go into the program, right? You just start going down the list of what, just to get you the answer you need.
Oh, it's going to revolutionize our monitoring.
It's not only going to get you that answer that you think you need now, but it's going to open the door to other answers you could get that you can't get now. Yeah. So,
in our world, so many businesses, the answers are siloed, and then in our world, it's almost like a cat and mouse game of, you may know your income on one product, but you don't know your expenses because it comes in 4 different invoices. Yeah. And every one of those invoices may be to that product, but they all call it something different. Mm-hmm. Every company calls it something different. And they can, and so things are getting better in the core banking software as far as billing. But in years past, we get bills at 2 different times throughout the month. And the names are on the bills are different than your contract. Yeah. And then you're trying to go through there. And I just tell you, even, when I went through 5 years ago, what our exact costs were on debit cards. Mm-hmm. my CFO at the time was like, "Oh, we're making X amount a month, 5,000." I'm like, that doesn't seem right. I've had the charge. We got to add in our fraud that we've heard.
Yeah.
She wasn't add in all the other expenses that were tied to it. They were embedded and hidden in other. And really, when it came down to it, it was like we're losing, instead of making 70 grand a year, we're losing $1,200 a year on it.
Yeah.
At that time.
And so in the future, what you can do is, since you have all the data accessible, you can say, what is it costing us to have a debit card program, and and keep these parameters in mind.
Well, not only that, you can show like
it'll immediately give you.
Here are the patterns that make profitable. Is it, at what point in time do you have an individual like you give them a free card because they lost their card?
Yeah.
You got to, customer lost their card in 2 years, give them a new card. I'm not charging for it.
Yeah.
But you have that person, it seems like every 4 weeks they need a new card replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that made me someone. We've spent $70 this year on your card replacements.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What's
cool about that though is you can get the AI model to give you the answer and then put it into a
alert you as that happens, so and not have to.
Yeah. So it can
what did we do last year? And then you're like, okay, now we need to find.
So
that
then you
pattern.
can create a dashboard from that information. That's an active live dashboard to the minute.
Yes. And to do that now as you're growing, it's
not possible.
No, you got to have a department that they're grabbing here, grabbing there. And they're still looking at older data. So you still may be a quarter behind. You're like, okay, great. There's nothing now. And now, okay, we got to change some parameters going forward. So,
and that's just to do that one function.
Correct. I mean, and that's one minuscule
function. You could do 100
function.
things like that and have a live active dashboard that's telling you literally to the second or minute of your company what's happening with all the things. And in the bank, that's going to be super.
And you can build it into every product and services, exactly your profitability, where you're at, metrics, and coordinate. And the one thing I've seen is, it's hard to ever really see some profitability on customers because you have no idea how much time they took maybe on the phone call dealing with.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
but now you can know. It's like
you could coordinate the voice over IP, but and then that has to be coordinated because how is it going to know, even though it knows you're on the, which employee has been on the phone for X amount of time, but how does it know which customer is dealing with? Well, but if you have that correlated and you know that customer's on the phone, but then they were looking up that account, then know that yes, they were dealing with.
I'd be surprised if it couldn't do it right now because all those calls are recorded. It can be transcribed. It can read it. It's got it.
Yeah, but you got to APIs and connect them.
Sure.
And then vendor agreements, everything. If you've got your own separate instance and you're having that fed in and you're not having to have the APIs between them, I think it also can limit the exposure.
Sure.
That you could have to.
Yeah, and I think especially in the banking world, it's you're
some systems
mitigating risk.
Some systems you want not touching your core. I mean, your voice over IP, there's another access to the internet. So, I mean, you may not want that on the same server or in the private, there's different things. Yeah. So you've got to, what else could they, if that's compromised, what else does that connect to?
Right.
So,
yeah, very interesting. Well, I think it's obviously rapidly turning into something very productive. And I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see a kind of deliverable product of how companies are starting to use this against their own data, which is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
I think productively and from a risk standpoint.